Tri-State. Traffic's heavy 87th, 47th, and very heavy from the Reagan Tollway to Irving Park. Reagan Tollway's okay right now. Northbound Veterans Memorial. Traffic stop and go from Boughton to the Reagan Tollway and farther north Army Trail to 290. Southbound 53 is tight Palatine to Kirchhoff. Eden's 22 minutes, Lake Cook to the junction. Kennedy 55 minutes, O'Hare to downtown. 31 from Montrose, 30 in the Express. Eisenhower an hour, 390 to downtown. 49 minutes from Wolf. Stevenson 50 minutes from 355. The Ryan 44 minutes from 95th. I'm Jim Palamonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. In our 1-hour heating and air conditioning weather center, breezy and cloudy this morning, giving way to sun and clouds by the afternoon and a high of 38. Clear and colder overnight, low 15. Currently 37. Next news at 9. And Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560 The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. President Trump was out with a new ad that debuted during the Daytona 500 yesterday.
America is great, better than ever. Under President Trump's leadership, we are racing to new heights. Millions of new jobs, rising wages, record low unemployment, securing our border, protecting our country, and respecting our veterans. Most of all, we are proud to be Americans, proud of our country, our families, and our flag. God bless America. And the best is yet to come.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Still, it's a real good bet. The best is yet to come.
Now I'm not going to be singing this song all day like I did yesterday with that song.
I do like that because it makes me think of Sinatra. Maybe he should see if he can get the chairman's estate to authorize use of that song.
Oh, yeah.
The New Heights, though, is the name of the ad. And New Heights also with debt and deficits, trillions more in both categories. Is that a problem? I don't know. Econ courses I took at university seemed to indicate that it was. Even at Northwestern, talking to one of the leading Keynesian economists of the time, Bob Eisner, even he wouldn't go quite as far as some of the economists of today are going, and is saying that, 20-some-odd trillion dollars in debt, another $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities, and annual $1 trillion deficits from Obama to Trump. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. We're in the days of easy money and low interest rates. What me worry? Well, Brian Riedl is a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, former chief economist to Senator Rob Portman from Ohio, and staff director of the Senate Finance Subcommittee on Fiscal Responsibility and Economic Growth. He has penned a piece for the Manhattan Institute suggesting that debt and deficits still do matter, that the principles of economics are still in force.
We were having so much fun.
Yeah, well, you can offer a skeptical eye in reviewing his work. We're pleased to be joined by Brian Riedl now. Brian, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
So, yeah, we're here in Illinois, so, of course, we know that unfunded liabilities and borrowing against tomorrow to pay for yesterday is not a problem.
Well, we're good at it. We've mastered it.
Exactly.
We're varsity members here. Okay?
And the people seem to like it. So, Brian, why not give the people what they want?
Because eventually the bill comes due. Right now, you hear a lot of people say, well, as long as interest rates remain low, the debt won't matter much. The problem is, even if interest rates remain low, we're about to be hit with $80 trillion in additional borrowing over the next 30 years. And that's if you assume peace, prosperity, low interest rates, and no new government programs. So the rosiest scenario possible is $80 trillion in additional debt over the next 30 years. In that case, even if interest rates never rise, the interest on a debt that big will still consume 42% of all federal taxes in 30 years. And if interest rates do rise, every point they go up will cost $11 trillion over 30 years. So you don't even have to assume a double tripling of interest rates to see how completely unsustainable the numbers are because of this massive deluge of debt that is going to continue growing.
Well, as my read of Milton Friedman, or as AOC calls him, Milton Keynes, is that
name assassinator.
Okay? That's sort of government spend and debt load crowds out private investment. But I'm being told by a lot of economists today that just simply isn't the case. So we can continue to grow in spite of this debt load that we're carrying. What's the truth?
Well, I think right now it's not really crowding out much investment. The world's awash in investment. But again, first I would say add $80 trillion in borrowing to the $20 trillion we have. I'm not so sure you can say that's not going to crowd out some investment. Additionally, I would say even if it doesn't crowd out investment, the point again is that it's still going to force up huge tax increases. Because again, even if interest rates remain low, the interest it was 1.2% of GDP a couple of years ago. It's going to go to 7.6% of GDP in 30 years, even under low rates. You would have to either increase the payroll tax 18 percentage points or create nearly a 40% value-added tax just to pay the bill due to the rising costs, rising deficits, and rising interest. Rising interest costs.
And that, of course, assumes no structural changes, which is what you would argue for, that you need to right-size government or decide that you're going to tax at those levels if you want to finance the amount of government we have.
Exactly. And if you want to know what's driving the $80 trillion in borrowing, it's actually quite remarkable. According to the Congressional Budget Office, over the next 30 years, the Social Security and Medicare systems will run a $103 trillion shortfall, while the rest of the government will run a $23 trillion surplus. So if you're trying to figure out why we're being hit with this deluge of debt that might bury us, it's not complicated. Social Security and Medicare shortfalls, $103 trillion over 30 years.
So will Social Security be around when I need to collect Social Security?
2 years from now, it'll be
Hey. 20, 30 years from now?
Social Security will be around. It may not be around in the same form that people are expecting now. I would assume that at some point you're going to see a notably higher retirement age, much slower growth of benefits, especially for those in the top earning half, and probably some significant tax increases in between because the current numbers just don't work.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to that stellar 1% return I'm getting on my money with Social Security. I can't wait for that. Boy, I sure hope it's around.
Pay a phone bill. Maybe.
Yeah, that's a great investment vehicle that we've come up with. Thank you, FDR. You talk about interest rates a bit because of the impact it has on the debt load that we're carrying and the interest payments that need to be made. You suggest that there are some reasons to believe that despite what the Fed is doing, that there is coming pressure for interest rates to rise.
Yeah, I think interest rates are low right now. A couple reasons interest rates may rise is first off the debt itself. Again, debt raises interest rates, and even if it's being counteracted by other factors,
right.
The economic consensus is that when the debt gets that big, it'll raise interest rates about 3.5 percentage points. And the other factors that are lowering interest rates may not continue to lower them enough to balance that out. And in fact, some factors that might raise interest rates are things like the baby boomers drawing down savings. The more the baby boomers eventually retire, they draw down their savings, they draw down their 401ks. That means there's less savings out there in the economy and interest rates go up. Additionally, emerging markets could push up interest rates if they end up attracting investment that used to go to America. Any increase in economic growth or inflation could raise interest rates. And so I think it's really tough to say as debt creates more pressure on interest rates, you're going to need other factors to actually push it back down. They might actually be pushing it back up even further.
Now, we're talking a lot about the downside of debt and spending beyond your means. But I know from Nancy Pelosi, a noted economist, that unemployment benefits are stimulative. And I know from the Keynesian dogma that every dollar the government spends has a positive multiplier. So all of this stimulative impact of piling up debt, are you factoring that in?
There is nothing really stimulative about piling up debt. First, I always tell people when we say government is stimulative that, every dollar government injects into the economy must first be taxed or borrowed out of the economy. But even for a Keynesian economist, those things like unemployment are stimulative only temporarily during a recession. In a full employment economy or over the long term, those policies are not stimulative. And in fact, the policies that are creating the debt, Social Security, Medicare, and even new proposals such as Medicare for All, those are not going to increase economic growth because those are transfer payments. Those are financing current consumption. If you want economic growth, you need investment. And in fact, a lot of government investment spending, infrastructure spending, is probably going to be squeezed out by these transfer payments for health care, transfer payments for Social Security. We're essentially going into debt to finance current consumption rather than investment. This is not going to increase the economy, and it could actually squeeze the investment spending that we need.
I mean, as an old state senator friend of mine used to say about Illinois, which has been doing this for 50 years, is we're essentially paying for our mortgage with a credit card, right?
It's exactly what we're doing. And I know Illinois finance as well. My wife grew up in the Chicago suburbs, and I'm from Wisconsin. And I think we're seeing this a lot in Illinois with the pension problems. And eventually the bill comes due. You could only put off the day of reckoning for so long.
Well, I'll tell you what, we here in Illinois, in the land of Lincoln, are happy to hear that we've scaled the Illinois financial model nationally. Because it's wonderful for us here leading the nation in outmigration. We wonder why. Brian Riedl, senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, former chief economist to Senator Rob Portman of Ohio, and staff director of the Senate Finance Subcommittee on Fiscal Responsibility and Economic Growth. Check out his piece on debt and deficits if you can stomach it. Manhattan Institute. I'll tweet it out. Brian, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Balance of Nature's fruit and veggie capsules contain 100% fine-ripened fruits and vegetables, tested pure with no pesticides, fillers, or additives of any kind, and are the most effective whole food supplements on the market today. Fruits and vegetables are on an average 85% water. Balance of Nature uses cold vacuum technology to remove the water, leaving only the whole food. Our cold vacuum technology maintains 99% of the fresh fruits and vegetables' original nutritional value. Don't wait to see what getting over 10 servings of whole fruits and vegetables every day can do for you. Right now, Balance of Nature is offering free shipping and 35% off on any new preferred order of fruits and veggies. Start your journey to better